We'll be all right.
Yep. Hello there. How you doing? You've got Oliver with you.
Yep.
Yeah, behaving.
He's always behaving, especially when he's sleeping. He's just waking up.
All right.
Okay, you gonna go potty? Let's go potty. Let's take you potty.
So we were just talking about the back in '95, the infamous comment by Kenneth Peterson
Right. Yeah. The
when he said,
comment, it would just be easier to
"Kill
knock.
Steve and frame him."
Right.
And I was always under the impression that the civil suit would have carried on posthumously. But you're also saying that the family, because of how far the case had gone, they would have probably been filing for a wrongful death.
Yeah. I mean, I could see at the height of his civil suit, if Kenneth Peterson would have had Stephen Avery knocked off, I would see a very good success of winning a wrongful death suit. I mean, because that would just be way too suspicious, you know.
Yeah.
$36 million filed, and all of a sudden Stephen Avery dies. Yeah, we got something wrong with that picture.
Whereas framing him looks equally suspicious and is suspicious, but at least they can frame him, can't they? You know.
Right.
Now this time that we were talking just a few minutes ago about once Kathleen Zellner is successful, and I appreciate the fact that you're saying that Kathleen Zellner is beginning to realise just how dangerous opponents she's facing this time round. But you were saying that combined with Brendan, what sort of figure do you think they should be claiming for?
I would say, in a case this extensive, I would go at least 500 million apiece. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for Brendan Dassey to get out because his is a coercion confession, and it's a little difficult. But for both men, I mean, if they really caught everybody red-handed, I wouldn't see 500 million apiece being far-fetched, Yeah. I mean, you took away Brendan's the last bit of Brendan Dassey's childhood, his teenage years, and he hasn't seen the free world as an adult ever,
Yeah.
And Stephen, he spent over 60% of his natural life in prison.
Yep.
So we know he was innocent the first time, and then you want to frame him. I see all the evidence of a frame job. I don't think $500,000 per individual would be. I think they would get it.
It's like 500 million.
500 million, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yes. 500,000 would seem a bit. Even by Wisconsin standards.
I got caught off by a little guy real quick. He was like, Oliver, what were you doing?
Yes.
I gotta keep an eye on him. He can power New York City. Put him in a hamster ball.
Yep.
Hey, buddy.
And what did you make of the filing by Kathleen Zellner? I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was quite smart how she addressed one of the issues that really does bug a lot of people. And it's the fact that the state hide behind the Hallbecks and then accuse us of standing on Teresa's grave and asking inappropriate questions of them.
Right. And yeah, that's another thing a lot of people overlook in this case. Even during the media, I thought her questions were pretty good because back in 2005 in the media, Tim Hallbeck, he was the vice president of the Chilton Bar Association, and so that would have been putting him working with Ken Kratz, a lot in that area. but he was saying he was working nighttime. The family, he would kind of help the family with the farm, milk the cows, dairy farm, and then at nighttime he'd do a lot of work. But that puts Tim Hallbeck directly in places where he needs to do. Just if anything was going on shady with death certificates or anything else, because I don't know if a lot of people know, but Twohig, George W. Twohig, is
Yep.
a long friend of Peg Lautenschlager.
Yep.
He graduated in 1973. Peg Lautenschlager graduated in 74, and they're both from the Fond du Lac area, and they've been lifelong friends. But Twohig was the president of the Chilton Bar Association. So when it comes to Tim Hallbeck being an attorney, Fallon has a history. Thomas J. Fallon has a history of protecting attorneys, especially sexual predator attorneys. Ken Kratz turned to Fallon for protection as soon as he was charged with his 2010 texting scandals. And then I don't know if anybody has been able to read my book, but I talk about these two Wisconsin attorneys who raped a lady, and Fallon worked on that case, and they got off with probation. Didn't even have to register as a sex offender, but they were the age of Tim Hallbeck. So you got to look at it. If one of your own in your little Wisconsin clubs of your attorney and judges ring, if Tim Hallbeck's vice president of the Chilton Bar Association, they'd be going after Stephen Avery pretty hard,
Yeah.
just because Tim Hallbeck was an attorney,
Yeah.
So that comes into factor too.
Yeah, he's sort of one of their club.
Right. And then so for Zellner to say, what she said, they want to hide behind the Hallbacks, but if I was Karen Hallbeck, if I was Tom Hallbeck, if I was Teresa Hallbeck's sisters and brothers, I would be having some questions if I didn't know anything what was going on. Which Tim Hallbeck, he was privileged to the information, being where he was in his position.
Yeah.
Whatever was going on, it was behind closed doors all the way. I mean, he was there, Yeah,
I find the Mike Hallbeck very, very dodgy.
Right.
That comment of the grieving process.
Right.
What beggars belief for me is that the press didn't immediately jump on him and say, what did you say? You might have thought that you just slipped up, but that's the sort of words that get people caught out, and yet the press just allowed it just to carry on.
I just think the press at that time, I mean, the law enforcement pretty much basically runs the press in cases.
Yeah.
They can only give information to the public of what they can expel for themselves.
Yeah.
But there were some dumb reporters, and I'm just gonna call them straight out dumbasses. Okay. Yeah. I mean, even they went to go ask Lautenschlager questions, and she refused to talk. Okay, on numerous occasions, and she goes, you need to talk basically to the leaders, the investigators leading the case. And I'm like, okay, so you want us to talk to Wiegert and Fassbender, but you didn't see the reporters asking a bunch of questions. It was always Ken Kratz kind of running everything,
Yep.
That's your mouthpiece. They let the mouthpiece at the bottom food chain, and I'm not. Did you know that during the trial of Stephen Avery that Ken Kratz got addicted to Vicodin during the trial?
Right.
Not after, during. Okay, and for him to be taking Vicodin during a trial, that's got to tell you he was under a lot of pressure from the state to be doing a lot of shady stuff,
Yep.
I mean, if Brendan Dassey is guilty, if Stephen Avery's guilty, and it's a slam dunk case, like you said, Ken Kratz, what the fuck are you on Vicodin? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and with Thomas J. Fallon sitting there, I believe everybody was at their own peril. They did everything at their own peril. You don't play ball.
Yeah. You actually sort of touched on a question that I've meant to ask a while back. Obviously, you've got your book Beyond Avery Road, which looks at the it looks at the corruption in far more detail than anybody else has looked at, and obviously we've spoken with the One Screw. And I'm very much into the the fact that these things don't happen by accident.
Right.
This conviction of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey was done for a purpose. I'll get to my question, which was basically, you've done a lot of research in the case. When did you first hear about Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey?
When did I first hear about them?
Yeah.
It was Making a Murder actually coming.
It was Making a Murder that got you into it. Yeah.
I recall in 2005. I remember like some of the because I'm right outside of Atlanta, in Georgia at that time, and Atlanta's, that's where your CNN is headquartered out of. But I remember them talking about the photographer, which was Teresa disappearing. But then, like, when everything started looking familiar whenever it started coming out on Netflix,
Yeah.
But, in 2005, just as far away as from Wisconsin you was, you didn't know how big of an impact anything was going to be,
Yeah. And I believe that you've actually been to Wisconsin, to Manitowoc. You've spoken to a lot of the people involved in this corruption.
Yeah, and one of the very most interesting person I think I had a chance to speak with, probably Mark Gundrum. Right. He's a judge right now, but I believe he got his judge position for, just being part of the shindig and giving Lautenschlager the Avery Task Force over, and she renamed. So it's like they gave everybody awards. They gave everybody judge positions. They gave everybody sheriff positions. They just moved all the small little soldiers up to the big fish level, for participating.
Yeah.
And it's like, if no one can see that, and the thing is, you had 250 plus officers that came onto the Avery salvage yard during this thing. But it's like the main people, you got Wiegert, and you got just all of them just starting to, and even a lot of the politicians took on pretty important roles. And it just blows my mind that nobody can see the corruption. And like, if you get a chance to go to Wisconsin and talk to some of these politicians, I mean, it just gives you an eerie feeling, and it just was unsettling,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you were saying about the fact that you've been to Wisconsin and spoken to these characters, and 250 sort of people on the yard, at the salvage yard, looking into this so-called investigation. I personally, I wouldn't be too critical of the actual basic Calumet officers. I mean, they've never ever had a situation where they've been asked to go and investigate and do a search of a property, and yet use Manitowoc County Sheriff's officers to do the searching, because apparently they are the trained evidence technicians, and Calumet don't have these trained evidence technicians, such as Lenk and Colburn.
Right.
I mean, is there ever I mean, obviously, these sheriff's officers working for Calumet, they've never been trained in how do you cope with that scenario? Surely, because that's what sort of scenario. Well, does it happen anywhere else?
I'm pretty sure it happens. I'm just it's probably off record if it happens. They wanted this one to stay off record, you
Yeah,
know? And it's like they it's almost like they filmed everything under everybody's nose to make it look like everything was legitimate. But then you got to ask yourself, how did the filmmakers of Making a Murder, how did Laura and them, how did they miss so many things themselves visiting and everything? It's funny because one of the girls was wanting to be an attorney, before she went off and become a filmmaker. So
yeah,
it's like, if you have that mindset, how are you not getting deeper into this other stuff? Now they wanted to focus. They brought up a lot of good things in the in Making a Murder in season 1, but there was still the whole political scenario. With Mark Gundrum,
hmm
Lautenschlager, Fallon. They should have been more in depth than just keeping it on the county level. They should have been
yeah.
knocking on doors in Madison at the top tier level.
Well, I must admit, I remember I don't know if you've ever heard of the politician George Galloway. He's a Scottish MP that was hauled in front of the Senate and asked questions, and he thought he was just going to meekly come along and take a telling off from the Senate. It was over the Iraqi war. It was the oil for food program that he helped to establish in order to help the people in Iraq. And he goes to the Senate and he absolutely tears them to shreds.
Right. Well, good for him. We need people like that. We need reporters like that. Um,
Exactly, exactly.
Wisconsin is lacking in that department. You know. Um,
Well, hopefully now, judging by the tone of that, what was it, a 72-page? It wasn't a motion, was it? It was a response to
right.
the response that wasn't asked for from the state. And I can't help thinking the state are now wishing that they could get themselves out of this somehow.
Yeah. There's loopholes in everything. They're trying their best. They're gonna loophole it to death, man. They're gonna try to throw everything in the book. But what's good about that? By the time you make a response about everything, when they have no loopholes left, and I think that's one of Zellner's strategies right now is to let them put their own foot in their mouth, because
Put
because
their own neck in the noose.
right. Let them suit their own self up,
Yeah.
for. But I think that's a good strategy she's actually working on right now. Because you can only cite so many laws, before they make a boo boo somewhere. They already made several of them,
Oh yeah.
and and Josh Call, I don't even know where he has the audacity or the nerve to be speaking like on this case at all, and I don't even know if Zellner's familiar with Lautenschlager being his mother. I don't even know like but the first thing I would be doing if I was Zellner, I'd be having his ass recused.
Yeah.
And that's someone I'd be going after. But you know my position on that. I feel that Thomas J. Fallon, he's definitely on damage control. And now we have Josh Call, who's former FBI director. So I see this going federal, but I still see Zellner having roadblocks because when it comes down to it, you got to have some federal help. And if Call's in the mix, that's one of Fallon's wild cards,
Yes.
because Call has all the power right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
I mean,
that,
you obviously explained to me a while back about how the fact that by they settled a civil suit. Apparently, Steve was paid money from Dennis Vogel's insurance because
right.
the civil suit still had this $400,000 dollars worth to it, which is quite laughable when it's so close to the amount that Mark Gundrum was going to hand over to him. But the point is that, of course, by accepting that 400,000, that meager 400,000, Steve had to then accept the fact that the sheriff's department, there was no wrongdoing on their behalf, and I think it's the money side of it is pitiful, but the worst
Yeah.
about it is the fact that that Manitowoc Sheriff's Department got off with it basically.
Right, yeah, and that was handed down by Stephen Glenn to Stephen Avery to say, hey, look, we're gonna you're gonna take this. It's definitely money washed over from Vogel's insurance. It was 460,000. So 60,000. Okay, so basically, Mark Mark Gundrum was in charge of the legislation when they voted on what to give Stephen Avery. Okay, Stephen Avery he petitioned for 1.2 million. Okay, and so after 1.2 million gets denied, Gundrum comes up with 460,000, and that was passed in the legislation bill.
Yeah.
So when you pass that, you got that money. That money's there. Okay, so whenever Stephen goes to get the money, he only gets 400,000 of it. Okay, so $60,000 of it just disappeared. And if you ask me, I believe Dennis Vogel's insurance agent,
Yeah.
whoever he was, got $60,000 to shut the hell up at the moment. Just, hey, we're gonna wash it. Here you go. Here's 60,000. Shut your mouth. Get the hell out of here. I wouldn't put it past them because there's $60,000 unaccounted for.
I must admit, I am enjoying watching that little dog.
he,
he had a big stone at one time, didn't he?
Yeah. I had to throw it away. They're doing construction across the park over there, and somehow a chunk of concrete must have chipped off over here. So I had to pick it up and throw it. He's probably more pleasant on the eyes than me, so everybody can watch him run around. You hear a bell now.
Yeah. That will be for what? Oh no, I make that 10 to 11 here, so 10 to 6 over there.
Yes, 5:50 up 10 to 6.
So are you just in like a Stenton Green or something?
Do what now?
Whereabouts are you? Are you in a?
I'm in a place called Hancock Park. It's just a little park right outside the square in Dahlonega. I better not say that. They'll probably have me assassinated now.
I have no idea where you said. I think you said you're somewhere in Colorado, but that's as far as I know.
Hancock Park off in Dahlonega. I'm back in Georgia.
Yeah. No, I think if we're on their radar, then they really do have problems.
Right.
I think they've got bigger fish to fry than worry about. It's quite funny how our dude buddy he gets a bit concerned about things, and I'm like, well, I don't think we're any threat to anybody over there in.
Well, knowledge is what causes corruption, okay? And so knowledge is power, and when the power can be used against them, that's when they write movie titles like "The Man Who Knew Too Little." So you got to be careful. I mean, investigative journalism is dangerous, and some of these people in Wisconsin, maybe they aren't dummies. Maybe they just knew a little too much and didn't want to explore it. I mean, I think the hardest question politically I heard asked in Making a Murderer one came from Anjanette Levy,
Yeah.
and it was when Norman Gahn was talking about the bullet that the buffer sample that got contaminated by Sherry Colhane, and he goes, sometimes you just have to
Use common sense.
make
Yeah.
sense and use logics, and it's like, okay, so now we're just using opinions instead of science. Okay,
Yeah.
Norman, you know what freaking state do we do that in? Wisconsin. But that was one of the hardest questions I think I heard any reporter ask, because like her eyeballs just got big as could be,
Yeah.
and like she just looked like taken aback by the whole thing that Norman Gahn was speaking. And I talk with Anjanette Levy on Twitter pretty often, and she like her opinion of him right now is that, she's tried to interview him several times, on camera, off camera, and he's kind of dodgy with stuff. I mean, Norman Gahn, he's a Wisconsin DNA pioneer. Okay,
Yeah.
so with the Avery Task Force, one of their main parts of the bill was to preserve biological matter. So first of all, how do you make a statement over the buffer sample like that, and then give the bones back to the family later on? I mean, you just destroyed biological matter, and you sat on the Avery Task Force with Jerry Buden for 2 years, and you know, I mean, what's going on with that picture? Like,
Yeah.
like you're supposed to be the Michael Jordan of DNA,
Yep.
and you're gonna let biological matter get destroyed, and then you're gonna let opinions do the speaking over scientific work. Over your state crime lab.
It's funny how somebody's just joined in, and I was going to point out the fact that Eric Ose needn't be at all worried about his health and welfare. Nobody in their right mind would eliminate the dude, because Dr. Pepper sales would absolutely plummet. He's a national institute. He's keeping Dr. Pepper going.
Right, right.
Hi there, dude. How you doing?
I think you're overstating it.
Let me turn your mic up a wee bit.
Who, me?
Yeah, I'm going to turn you up a wee bit. There you go. How's that?
All right. Is that better?
Yep. How's it going?
All right. I'm just stopping off to drop something off the shop, so I'm on the Wi-Fi for a minute, so I thought I'd jump in real quick.
Yeah, well, it's...
can't stay long.
You know,
get home. I got a live going with Scooby tonight. So,
what time roughly?
8 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time.
I'm 8 hours ahead, so your 6 is my... about 2 in the morning for me.
There you go.
Oh, there. Oh, well, I'll...
We'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah. Yeah,
how's that Making a Murder a-thon coming out?
Oh, the Making a Murder, the MAM-a-thon. Yeah, it's coming together. It's coming together. In fact, I gotta follow up on a few things on that. I was so busy last night, I didn't get home till like 8 o'clock at night, and then I was reading the reply, or actually the motion for leave to reply.
Yes.
And then,
the most funniest thing I ever heard in my life.
Well, I think it's brilliant, right? Because it's
it's brilliant.
like, we're doing it the right way. Okay, we know we're not supposed to, so we're gonna say we're filing a motion for leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
The state's gonna put their foot too far down their throat before too long.
Oh wait, you mean by basically making the argument that they gave animal bones to the Hallbecks in 2011?
Yeah. And the Hallbecks haven't complained about it yet. That's what concerns me. You know, I'd be like, hey, did we get a chicken or did we bury my sister?
They were like, where basically, you know, I don't know, Fallon or some agents of the state probably went to the Hallbox and said, look, in these arguments, we're going to argue that they're a possible human, but, you know, just know that we believe these are Teresa's, but we don't want to tell Steven's lawyers that. I mean,
Right.
I envision a conversation, something like that taking place with the Hallbox.
Yeah,
But it still could get very embarrassing because all of us posting the fact that the state is saying they don't know what those bones are is going to raise questions. And the Hallbox may end up finding themselves in the awkward position of having people ask them. So, what did you get from the state, right? I mean, I could imagine that might get tiresome for them and they may end up, you know, not being on the state side.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to jump into the Avery camp by any means. I don't expect them to do that, but I could see them wanting to distance themselves from the state at some point here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, the higher up the level goes, I honestly think Zellner's getting into some dangerous and treacherous waters. You know, honestly.
Yeah,
I think she can handle it though.
Well, I think we have a certain Chad Keller to thank for actually getting in touch with her and explaining one or two of the facts that go on in there in Wisconsin, don't we?
Yeah, but I guess so.
Chad, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that Kathleen Zellner has the benefit of you having been in touch with her and pointing out one or two of the things that the state could be disingenuous about.
I just hope that she doesn't think that Fallon's still a man of integrity still.
No, I don't think she does.
That's
the word disingenuous is coming out way too much for that.
Yeah. Right? When I read it, I thought, I wonder if she's used the word disingenuous 2 or 3 times, especially because she knew that the dude was
counted twice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I read it twice, so I saw it 4 times.
Oh, there you go. But that was great. I mean, I was reading that thing last night and I was like, it was a long day and I was tired and I was like, God, I don't really want to read this right now. But I started reading it, dude, and then it was just like a compelling read because it was just so funny. I just I imagine her and her associates were sitting around writing that thing and just having a blast.
Shakespeare.
Yes.
If Shakespeare was an attorney, it's like something he would write for one of his books.
Right.
For like one of the most brilliant attorneys ever.
Well, I
imagine them sitting around the table going, okay, guys, look, I got an idea. Okay, you know how the state is constantly arguing that we're procedurally barred or that Steven is procedurally barred? Well, here's what we do. We're going to argue that they are procedurally barred from telling us that we're procedurally barred. It's like, bam! It's like, oh, my God. You got to imagine they were having a little bit of fun with this, dude. To turn the state's argument back on them like that.
Well, of course, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays is The Merchant of Venice, and of course, you have there that sort of court scene at the end where it turns out to be the female lawyer. She's dressed to look like a bloke because blokes are the only ones allowed to be lawyers. Turns out it's the wife, isn't it, of the or the girlfriend that manages to get him off having to lose his pound of flesh and so yeah, the irony of it being the lady who gets him off is have you seen The Merchant of Venice?
Yes, it's really great. You know what? While we're on the subject, back in 2016, I had actually made a theory because everybody's like, "Why is not Zellner? Why is she going after Fallon?" This was back in 2016. And I wrote a theory. I said, Fallon and Zellner must be having a love affair if she's not exposing this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I suppose it.
I doubt that.
I suppose it, to a certain extent, they have to wait until they've got the facts that they can present. You know, they have to be cautious and go with And I realize that the state don't. They can just say what the hell they like and get away with it in the case of Fallon and Kratz and Garn. But if Zellner wants to be credible, which she is, and she's proven it, then she has to wait until she's got certain facts in front of her that she can then present. Even if she knew right from the word. I'm sure that as soon as she watched Making a Murder and decided that she was going to represent Steve, she must have thought, hold on a sec, there's something very, very strange going on there. Dude, I think Oliver has found a new friend.
Yeah, he's such a chick magnet. He just finds everybody. Well, everybody finds him.
Are you going to tell that young lady that she's live on TV in Scotland?
Oh yeah, you're live on TV in Scotland right now.
Hello.
Hello. It's nice and sunny there anyway.
Yes, pretty day.
Nice and
It's
sunny
kind of
here,
an
too.
overcast.
He can't get enough for her.
Yeah. Oliver knows what he likes.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
gonna
hamming it up. He's hamming it up over there.
I'm gonna be heading off shortly because I really only wanted to do just a short one, just as a follow up. I don't know if you caught what we were saying earlier, dude, but I think we were speculating as to what sort of compensation Steve and Brendan should be looking at when they get out this time, and a figure of 100 million has been banded around as far as Steve is concerned. But as Chad pointed out, there's been other cases. You mentioned a couple there, Chad. One where a guy sued for $750 million.
Yeah, that was Burke Ramsey, and he sued CBS for that, just for slander and
Oh,
defamation.
good Lord.
And then he didn't even get a fraction. He got, I think, $89,000 just for him to shut up. But then he turned around and sued Werner Spitz for another $150 million. So his total civil suit was $900 million.
Yeah.
For people
Wow.
accusing him of killing his sister. But
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, whatever figure they end up with, no money is going to compensate what they've been through, obviously, but there has to be some sort of punitive cost to the authorities in Wisconsin. And also, I would particularly like to see some sort of, sort of investigation, some sort of peace and reconciliation tribunal set up to try and look at what had happened, and so that these things don't happen in future, because that's always the big worry, isn't it? That these people, once they've been caught out with their corruption, they will then come up with something even smarter to try and be corrupt. It's always going to be a problem, isn't it?
I'm hoping social media starts putting a ban on all this stuff. Like, not in a ban, but an exposure, so legislation can ban it.
Right.
We're gonna have to eventually get smarter somewhere, some point, sometime.
Sure.
Well, I gotta say, this absolute immunity that's causing these bad actors in our justice system to just feel like they don't have to pay attention to the rules because they're immune anyway. That's got to stop. I mean, there has to be some accountability. I mean, there has to be some. You can't just say, "Oh yeah, you can be as bad as you want, no worries." I mean, you can't do that.
No.
I mean,
here's
humans
the
are
thing,
inherently weak, and they will take advantage of that time and time again.
This is what needs to happen, okay? So a lot of district attorneys and judges get away with it because there's already appellate courts, right? You need to have the appellate court judges sitting in the courtroom with your district county judge and your district attorney when it's going down. So if anything is happening during court, during the actual trial of a defendant, you have several judges sitting on it. You have a judge judging the judge. You have a panel, so you can go ahead and get everything you know, taken care of right then and there, instead of people sitting in prison for 15 to 20 years before they get out, you know? And I think that'd be a smart way to do it. You have to govern your governor, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I know I'm really bad at this. Okay, I know I am really bad.
Here, get back over here.
But I am actually looking at one of the chats here. You know, the chat that's going on, and there's a question here from somebody called Bean Green, and it said, and we want to know about this.
Is it Go Mean Green or is it Mean Green?
Just Bean Green. Why have I never noticed Eric Jose's beard before? Is it just a stick-on one?
You never noticed my beard before. I don't think. Yeah. I've only done like 3 or 4 videos when I didn't have a beard, so I don't know. That's weird. Hold on. One time I shaved it off. That was it. And so I had about maybe 3 or 4 videos where I didn't have a beard. But other than that, I've pretty much always had it. So that's strange.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with the lighting, isn't it? I mean, it was Mark that said to me, you know, could you do something about the lighting so that it shines more on me? But when you're going live, I think it's in your studio. You don't get to see exactly just how bonny you look.
Right.
Anyway, I'm gonna
I gotta go.
Let you go and let Chad go because I need to go upstairs and get ready for. I've got an early start in the morning. I would say that I probably won't be able to manage your 2 o'clock in the morning video, so I'll watch it at some point on Sunday. Okay, dude.
Okay, buddy.
Okay.
All right.
Cheers, Chad, and cheers, Oliver.
Hey,
say
see you
bye,
later,
Oliver.
Chad. See you later, Oliver.
All right,
bye.
I'll catch you at 2 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy. Good to see you.
Okay.
Glad
Cheers.
to see you there, buddy.
Cheers. Bye for now. Bye bye.